So what PS4 games can you play on a PlayStation 5? Are you going to get any kind of performance boost to frames per second or resolution? You're probably going to be playing a lot of PS4 titles on your PS5, considering there's only a handful of PS5 optimized games. Like literally, you can count them on one hand. I think my dog might ate Demon Souls and Godfall. We're going to go over some PS4 titles that simply do not work at all on the PS5, some of them that run a little bit buggy and glitchy. We're also going to go over some limitations with backward compatibility on the PS5, and then I'm going to take you guys in the living room and show you how to enable Game Boost, which is kind of like Microsoft FPS Boost. Kind of. We're going to cover that at the end, as there is a small, delicate, petite amount of PS4 games that are optimized for the PlayStation 5. Let's get this thing. Alrighty guys, share my screen. I have an article pulled up. This will be cited and sourced down there in the description below, as I do anytime I cover any kind of news or tutorial. Article right here will also be cited down there, and this one goes extremely in depth. As you can see, this is a long boy, a thick boy here, and this covers literally pretty much every PlayStation 4 title, how it runs on the PS4 base, the PS4 Pro, and then the PlayStation 5 when it comes to frame rate, resolution, as well as any notations or memos about any kind of glitches or bugs, as there are quite a few. So first of all, what is Game Boost? I'm not going to read this because I already fully understand the feature, but I will explain it to you guys. More or less, frame boost if a game doesn't require a patch or an update to be optimized or kicked up to a higher resolution or frame rate. All it's really doing is keeping a more consistent frame rate. So on the PS4 Pro, where we constantly saw fluctuations with the uncapped 60 frame rate, dipping down into the 50s and even the 40s when there's a lot of action on screen. Basically, it's a more consistent frame rate, generally at 60 frames per second. However, there are some games that do require a patch or update, which will boost them up to 60 frames per second, as they were originally at 30. And some of those are Blood and Truth, Days Gone, which runs at 60 frames per second in dynamic 4K, where it was capped at 30 in checkerboard on the PS4. God of War is now 60 frames per second in checkerboard 4K on the PS5, where it's limited to 1080p and hovers around the 40 to 50 on the PS4 Pro. Ghost of Tsushima, which I have been playing on the PlayStation 5, is now at 60 frames per second, where it was 30 on the PS4 Pro, and it looks better on the PS5 as well. Ratchet and Clank, I have been dabbling a little bit in this as well. 60 frames per second, used to be 30. Rocket League is now 60 with HDR. But this is it right here. These are the games that are a higher frame rate than what you would experience on the PlayStation 4. Now, if you're a diehard Sony fan, I want you to go ahead and warm up your fingers right now. Make sure your mouse is closely accessible, because the dislike button is only one click away. Because in the aspect or category of backward compatibility, the Microsoft Xbox Series S and X are far superior. There are 94 titles that are boosted from either 30 to 60 or 60 to 120. As we're over here on the PlayStation, these are all 30 to 60. None of these games have been boosted up to 120 frames per second. Some of these are still dipping down into the 50 range. They are not a capped consistent 60 frames per second. And there are a ton of PS4 titles which simply don't work at all. And of the 94 FPS boosted titles on the Xbox Series, those reach back all the way to the first generation, so 3 generations ago, as the PlayStation 5 can only play PS4 games, and not even all of them. If we come over here to this article, these are PS4 games that fail to run on the PS5 at all, and this actually isn't all of them. These are just ones that just won't run or launch, period. There are also other games, if we scroll down this list here, that you will see little notes that they do have graphical bugs and glitches that were not on the PlayStation 4. They're introduced with the PlayStation 5. So like I mentioned, both these articles are linked in the description below. So if you're trying to find a specific game, I recommend you guys press Control F on your keyboard and then type in whatever game you're looking for. So, okay, here's Cyberpunk 2077. Yep, between... I shouldn't laugh, it's not funny. Between 20 and 30 frames per second at 1080p on the PS4 Pro, and 60 frames per second with drops at 1188p on the PlayStation 5. Lovely. Oh, over here, Crisis Remastered. DOF effect misapplied. 1080p, 30 frames per second with judders. 30 frames per second with drops. Oh boy. Oh my goodness. Daylight. Heck yeah, baby. Locked 60 frames per second. Oh, pronounced graphical glitches. Dead Nation. Campaign unplayable. Crashes at end of every level. In arcade, skipping round results corrupt saves. So if you haven't already hit that dislike button, get ready to double tap it, because my experience thus far with backward compatibility has been uncomparable, simply uncomparable. The Xbox Series, and I have the S, the $300 console, more or less because I have a pretty damn powerful PC. All Xbox exclusives are really Windows exclusive, so I can just get the same, well, better experience on my PC and plug in a controller to the front of the tower if I want to play like that. So there's no real need for me to have the Xbox Series X. The fact that so many of these titles either don't run or run worse on the PlayStation 5, for example, Ghost Runner here, has a lower resolution and the same frame rate than it did on the PS4 Pro. It went from 1440 to 1080. Explain that, because I sure can't. That's crazy. Minor graphical glitches. Oh, Lara Croft, I'm a big fan. Pronounced graphical glitches later in the game. HDR unavailable, game may crash or halt progress until patched. Oh boy. All right, boys, so I'm gonna take you in the living room real quick. Now, by default, Game Boost should be, I use air quotes because it's not, in practice it really isn't, but on paper, in Sony's articles and whatnot, Game Boost should automatically be activated, but I'm gonna show you how to, trust but verify, how to ensure that it really is activated. Alrighty, boys, sorry if that lamp over there flashes. It doesn't do it IRL or in real life, however, through the lens of the camera. It's a little bit annoying, but just ignore it like bad publicity about your favorite console. So in order to make sure that you have Game Boost actually initialized, you're gonna go over here to settings. You're gonna go down to game/app settings, and then go to game presets. And by default, this is obviously at default, so the game is going to pick what it thinks you enjoy. Do you like sheer graphical fidelity, you know, HDR, ray tracing, but at about 30 frames per second? Or do you prefer the higher frame rate? We are going to choose performance, which generally is what Game Boost will default to. However, by manually selecting it here, you should be good to go. We're going to go to screen and video, go over here to video output, HDR, have this selected on when supported. If you have it always on, this can cause a little bit of compatibility issues, and that can actually cause bugs and crashes in PS4 games. I have experienced it myself. So put it on when supported, and then down here, enable 120 Hertz output. This is a feature that was added in the recent update that we got about a month ago, the first major patch or update to the PlayStation 5. I made an entire video going over all the features of that update. But what you want to do is go ahead and set this to automatic. Leave the rest of these at default, RGB range, deep color output, leave all of that. Now here's what I'll say. In my experience, backward compatibility on the PS5 really hasn't been terrible. It hasn't been bad by any means. I've been able to put my PS4 disc games. I've been able to slide my PS4 discs into the front of my console. Obviously, if you have the $400 digital only PS5, you won't be doing that. So far, everything has worked. Besides a few titles here and there that seemed a little bit wonky and actually seemed like they ran worse than on my PS4 Slim, which is the Sony console that I was coming from. That did leave a little bit of a sour taste on my tongue, especially considering the $300 Series S over here has run every single classic I've thrown at it, all the way back to Xbox Original and Xbox 360 games. Granted, I do have a Xbox 360 right next to the Series S. The fact that a lot of those games are boosted up to 60 or 120 frames per second, and the highest frame rate you're going to get on any classic games on the PS5 is 60 Hertz, and even still, it's not a locked 60. A lot of times it's squiggling on me a little bit. When there's a lot of action on screen, it's dipping. Like if I had a frame rate counter like I do on my PC, I guarantee she'd be doing the two-knuckle shuffle in the corner of my screen. But all in all, I do appreciate that Sony is at least trying to do something, okay? At least they're trying. I'm giving them an A for effort, but a D plus for actual utilization of these features. The fact that they do have Game Boost, it's a little weird that they tout it and they show it off and they showcase it all over their site and whatnot. However, the actual implementation of it, it's not that great. Hopefully all the time and energy that they put into the hype and marketing of it actually gets utilized into how it actually works for us, the average consumer, the gamer, how it actually feels to play these classic titles. Granted, it's only one console generation back, but still, it'd be nice to have these games, a good library of them, actually run better, maybe 120 frames per second, maybe HDR without crashes and bugs, stuff like that. I'm not bad-mouthing Sony. I love my PS5. In fact, when I'm not on my PC, I spend way more time on the PS5 than I do on the Series S. It is a little frustrating, especially when you spend $500 on a console, but it's not anything that's going to be crippling to the experience or anything like that. Plus, not to mention, if you buy a PS5, you're most likely going to pick up a lot of PS5 games like Demon's Souls and Sackboy. Returnal's out now. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is coming out in June. Gran Turismo got delayed, but that will be coming out in the near future. Miles Morales is a good game. Astro's Playroom, which is baked onto the PS5, is a super fun game. Sackboy, that's a really fun couch co-op game, and that is on the PS4 as well, and that is crossplay, so if your buddy has a PS4 or something, you can play with each other, which is pretty cool. That's going to do it, boys. If you like the video, shoving a thumb up helps it get seen by more people, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover a lot of news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.